Hi everyone, good evening to another session of Thinkly Talks. And I'm Aishwarya. I am from Team Thinkly. And today I have the honor and privilege of speaking with Mr. Satyarth Priyedarshi, who is a very, very big name in the e commerce space and the digital space. Hi.
Hi, and hi to all your viewers also. Thank you for joining us today. Pleasure to be here and very excited because the topic that has been picked up is something that I've been noticing since quite some time. So,
Yeah, true.
yeah.
So, what exactly have you been noticing about it, or what sparked your interest in this topic? By the
So,
way, today's topic, just to clarify, today's topic is sensationalization versus sensitivity in digital media. So, by sensationalization, we mean clickbait and rage bait culture, which has, found a larger space in the digital media today. So, Satya is going to elaborate on that a bit more.
see, I'm not elaborate as such. I'm a fellow user. You are. I also consume media. So
Yeah.
don't say that. But as a fellow reader, I mean, and I kind of like to read widely. Uh,
Mhm.
I've been noticing this particular shift. You have been noticing fake media, fake news, all of that is there.
Yeah.
Then there is also the sensationalism that has crept into the journalism part, and I wouldn't say that it's new, Ashwarya. I mean, uh,
True.
it is something that has been around for quite some time. If I'm not wrong, something around 1890s or something is when, the big newspaper clashes happened in New York and yellow journalism was actually invented,
Yeah.
right? And
Correct. Correct.
where in order to sell more newspaper, I mean, people started printing whatever they could, and that still hasn't changed much. That is the
Mhm.
except that earlier it used to be pretty controlled. It used to be a few editors, a few newspapers who would do that. But now,
Mhm.
with me, you, and everyone having the power to go and write on this new media, which is the internet, which is not so new now, 30 years, at least 35 years old, uh, that it has completely kind of changed. And
Mhm.
the amount of information that is flowing in,
Yeah.
that makes it very hard for us to distinguish what is right, what is wrong, what should be believed, and what is just to kind of get our eyeballs.
So, as you said, we are surrounded by so much of fake news or news that is, decorated or sugar coated or just gassed up, to maybe be misleading for the most part. How do you, try to differentiate between the truth and fiction if you are a user and you're scrolling online so that you're well informed about topics?
So I'll digress a little bit, Aishwarya. So first of all,
Hmm.
I will go back a little bit. So from yellow journalism, the same thing was then picked up. The word propaganda. You know that.
Correct.
So it's used in a very political sense, right? That propaganda. But propaganda was actually a genuine everyday word in 1920s and
Hmm.
30s, when the world wars were being fought in 1930s, and that's where it was massively used, where
Hmm.
the Germans would just throw pamphlets all over London, right? And people would not know whether to believe or not. I mean, they would carry news like somebody has been killed, or a big important region has been won by Germany, and news items like that, and people would get confused, and people would not know. And at that point, government used to use radio and a lot of things to actually curb this misinformation in Europe.
Okay.
Even today, if you notice, government has come up with some machinery to address the false news and all of the sensationalism that's kind of hanging around. But
Yeah.
even as a user, the best protection against misinformation is information. So of course, trustworthiness of the source is important. Where you are
Yeah,
getting
that's
your
crucial.
news from, yeah, so that still holds credibility, you know
Mhm.
and second is read widely. Don't just consume news from one particular region or one particular tabloid or one particular website. uh,
Mhm.
one of the special so one of the things about digital media is it's very good at creating your social bubble, your digital bubble in which you reside. The content that you are seeing is something that is very aligned with your thought process. uh,
Correct.
And what that does is, when in earlier times, when you were reading a newspaper, you were reading, or even now, I mean, if you were reading newspaper, you were reading
Hmm.
newspaper, and there were millions others who were reading the same news, right? It was
Yeah.
one, it was being broadcasted to all.
Hmm.
Today, with digital media, it is very possible that the stuff that you're reading on social, if you're consuming news on social, or if you're consuming news on YouTube or any of these medium, it's very easy to get into a bubble where suddenly the algorithms at work, which is people like me create these algorithms, so I am partially kind of in it, and that's partly also the reason why I am interested in this subject, so as to
Yeah.
avoid such things. So the point being that in social, it's very easy to create your bubble, and then that
Hmm.
bubble manifests. You keep on consuming media, and you think that is the truth.
Yeah, that is
If you
true.
were reading a newspaper, you would have an editorial and an op-ed column. There would be an editorial, and the editors would allow somebody to come in and contradict their view with an
With an
op-ed.
opinion piece. Yeah.
Correct. An opinion piece. It was called an op-ed, right? But in today's digital world, if you're consuming media, you will not get an op-ed opportunity. You will just be surrounded by your viewpoint. So suppose if you are pro particular political party, you are against a political party, you are pro war, you are against war, whatever your viewpoint might be, you know,
Yeah.
you will keep on getting more and more and more and more of this news that will surround you, and it
Hmm.
will entrench your belief. It will remove all doubts from your mind that what you believe might not be true. And this is the problem that the new media is creating. I mean, we have lived with media for quite some time. It's not that the media itself is new. Newspapers have been around for maybe 200 years now, right?
Correct.
So it's not that the
Yeah.
media itself is new, but the new medium, that is the internet, and the new
Hmm.
systems and the new automation that is now driving some of this content that is getting delivered to you, that is changing the shape of this entire piece, and the way you used to consume, and the effect it's having on society. And this is something, to break this bubble, you have to go out and diversify. Like how we eat balanced diet, you
Hmm.
don't only go and eat carbs, right? You eat a little bit of everything, and you need vitamins and minerals and this and that. And it's the same way you should now start consuming and looking at knowledge as well. That don't consume all your knowledge from one source, diversify,
Yeah.
read other people, read diverse thoughts, and force yourself to read op-ed pieces. Op-ed pieces in today's world are whatever your belief system is. Go and read the counter view of that belief system and try to understand what is it that people are saying. And I think
Hmm.
it's the only way to kind of safeguard yourself and vaccinate yourself and keep to a central viewpoint. And also, I mean, one more thing is consume digital media in moderation. If
Yes,
you're
definitely.
one of
You
those
can get
people,
wrapped
or
up so quickly
yeah.
in that.
So if anyone in our audience, if you're one of those people who can't live without Insta and stories and YouTube, and and who kind of keep on flipping all day around, you are just giving more and more ammunition to these algorithms to show you and bend your perception to a little bit larger degree.
I mean, doom scrolling has become a part and parcel of everyone's life, whether it's for the better or for worse. And what I feel is, coming to the point where you mentioned that these op-ed pieces or these contradicting pieces are becoming extinct in a certain manner. I feel like digital media has created a fair playground for everyone where everyone feels the need to, pick up a virtual, like a megaphone, and just shout their opinion out loud because they have the ability to do that.
Very true.
What I feel is that, having been, I mean, continuing to be a avid user of social media and digital media, I do come across a lot of opinions that are in contradiction to, my beliefs, or deconstruct it in a certain way, which may make me feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, because these are coming from another user who is hiding behind a username, I have no way to vet that information or verify it. And I feel this has also created the larger problem of, as people have nicknamed it, WhatsApp University. A lot of elders and, what do you say, even well-read people or gullible people just tend to fall for the first piece of information that comes on WhatsApp without realizing that how much of is it true? Is it coming from a verified source? For them, if a family member or a loved one sends that, it's as good as getting an approval seal. So that also I feel is perpetuating this wave of fake news consumption and just um, lighting the fire of clickbait culture, because your emotions and your feelings are being toyed with.
You were
But yeah.
you were bang on point. I mean, that it is being perpetuated. Aishwarya, I mean, there was a Canadian philosopher
Mhm.
who wrote the book on media studies. I mean, there are excerpts of his book. If I read it out to you, you will feel like it
Mhm.
was written yesterday. His name was Marshall McLuhan, and
Okay, never heard of him.
yeah, yeah, he was. I mean, he is in who's who of this thing, and
Mhm.
he wrote about media as an extension of man. Very interesting thought
Okay.
process.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, so he was a guy who had written a lot of stuff on mechanization, and
Mhm.
that how from Victorian societies the machines and everything. I mean, how the industrialization. I mean, sometimes you look back at past, Aishwarya, you will find that the concerns of humankind have not changed. We just think that we have inherited those concerns and we have just found those concerns out. But the same exact dialogue, that automation is
Yeah.
coming in and people will lose their jobs, and this is 60s and people are more worried about machines coming in, and the car plants and car factories and all of them being get
Mhm.
automated and people losing jobs, just the way today we are discussing about AI kind of taking away our jobs, right? And he's in this era in
Correct.
1960s, and he wrote the book media as, and so he wrote a lot on automation. And in automation,
Mhm.
what he says is that each one of the automations that we have seen previously, right? These automations
Mhm.
about extending our physical world, our physical uh, grip into reality. They were about extending our physical grip into reality. So machine is an extension of our hands and legs. A car is an extension of our legs. Machines are extensions
True.
of hands. And then finally, the media comes in, and media is an extension of our mind. So earlier, I mean, if you were 10,000 years ago, you maybe had just people in your village to talk to, and that
Yeah.
was it. And you would think and you would speak to them. And today, with newspapers and books, of course, internet was not there then, and
Mhm.
with books and with TV had just come in a big way in US.
Yeah,
So that
that was.
was a cause of concern. Like how we are worried about internet and its impact on society. These guys were talking
Mhm.
about television and its impact on society. And so he wrote this awesome book. And what he says is that there is what we call media, and then there is content, right? Each
Mhm.
media carries a content.
Okay.
But what he says is that every age comes up with its own media,
Mhm.
and the media of a particular age gets transported as content into the media of the next. It's a little technical thought. Bear with me.
Okay.
It's an easy
Yeah.
read. Trust me. So what
No,
he's saying,
on face value it makes sense, but yeah, go on.
yeah. So what he's saying is that the thought is original, right? Like how Rene Descartes said, "I am that I am therefore I think therefore I am." Right?
Mm.
He says thought is original, then thought becomes speech. Okay.
Yeah.
So the speech is the medium and thought is the content. Then he says that we started writing. Okay.
Mhm.
And when we write, the speech, which is the medium, it becomes
Mm.
content. And the media becomes typography or writing
Writing. Yeah.
right? And now, when you have television or something else or
Mhm.
movies, so each of the media keeps on becoming a part of the content of the next, culminating
Mm.
in internet, which is always on, always available, and contains every single media that has been created before it, be it video, be it sound, be it uh, the written word, whatever it is. But what he says is his larger philosophy, to which I am trying to drive towards,
Yeah.
is he coined the word global village, and some of these terminologies he coined it, global village. So
Okay.
what he says
Nice.
is that medium is the message. He says
Mhm.
that we should not worry about what is being written in any media. He says that is immaterial, because what is being written is an outcome of man. A man
Mhm.
is thinking a man is writing. I'm bringing this point out because you earlier said that there was some person anonymous who has written that, and you don't know the source of who has written it with what intent, and therefore you do not know whether to trust that
Correct.
or not, right? And what he's saying, don't worry about it. He's saying content is not that transforms societies. Content is something that distracts us, but it's the media, the
Mhm.
medium that actually shapes and transforms society. So in his example, he says that suppose if you look at a
Yeah.
light bulb is a medium without any content. But if you change that light into neon light and you write something with it, that becomes content, right?
Okay.
So,
Interesting. Yeah.
so I mean, it's he's a crazy guy. I mean, his book, I mean, it's a bestseller in every way. But overall, what he's trying to say is that every generation literally gets a new kind of a media. That media changes the society and the nature of society. And if you extrapolate that thought from 60s to today, our
Mm.
our media is internet. And it is internet that is going to have an impact on society. The content that it's carrying, the sensational or not, that's what I was trying to say. That internet did not invent sensationalism or fake news. They were always there. But what internet has done is, this media, what it has done is, it has amplified it and it has made it reach everyone all at once. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the biggest point with digital
that is
media.
the biggest point.
Accessibility has literally become a matter of, seconds.
Correct.
Everything is at your fingertips. You can just look up anything you want on Google or any other website of your liking, and you can, as you said, just read up on material that you want. And more often than not, because of this sensationalization that has, seeped into internet in the current age, it is, perforating this whole fake news, fake media consumption.
I
What
was
do you
I
say?
was
Train
just
wreck.
reading I was just
Yeah.
reading another book called Moneyland. I forget the name of the author, where he talks
Okay.
about, I mean, another aspect, which is all the financial frauds and everything, and Vijay Mallya's kind of, but on the European
Mhm.
side. And in that book, he meets somebody who is living in the Bahamas or wherever, and it's his job just to kind of create viral posts as a financial hitman. So
Hmm.
he of course does not name the source, and he is let me maybe I'll share but the name of the book is Moneyland, and it's the author.
Moneyland. Okay.
And what he says is that I met this guy in a bar, and all he
Mhm.
does is he sits there all day, like how we work out of Starbucks or something like that.
Mhm.
And if he has to create a fake news, he first creates a post on Reddit. Then he will kind of, then all Redditors or somebody from, I mean, there are enough people over there, so they will kind of go and attach themselves to the post. Then he will take that and he will try to inject it somewhere else. Then
Hmm.
he will write a PR article, which is a fake PR article, and he will submit that PR article to. Uh, there are so many free PR sites now who will consume
Mhm.
anything. You just mail it to them, they will just take it and they will publish it as a press release. And so a press release will be constructed with that Reddit article as a source and whatever not, and then that press release will be made, which will be low quality
Hmm.
PR release agencies, right? Who do
Yeah.
not put in a lot of thought in what the press release is. They are just conduits that anybody who mails a press release, they will release it. And
Correct.
then from there, if he's lucky,
Hmm.
he will, that press release itself will get picked up by some newspaper or some journalist or some online media who is in desperate need of news and in desperate need of clicks, and they will pick that up and they will then make it famous, because once a trustworthy news source has picked up the article, then other trustworthy news sources, they do not put in a lot of thought, and
They
from
just follow suit. Yeah.
yeah, from there it just travels all across the world. And the he kind of devotes a couple of pages on this entire methodology. And when
Hmm.
I was like really struck that of course, why not? I mean, why wouldn't somebody not be doing this as their full-time job? So I'm saying that
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
not just media itself, or media as we say, publishing houses or publishing agencies
Mhm.
that are doing it, but some of it is also being orchestrated in a way that
Mhm.
they also might be consuming fake news without knowing it, right? So, and I don't think that the rigor has set in into a lot of media outlets to actually do a fake news check or at least do an analysis and things like that. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Because like you mentioned, the problems have been there since forever. It's just the medium that has changed. And I feel like in the earlier times when you mentioned yellow journalism, that time the problem was obviously pushing the anti Spain propaganda that led to the US victory. I kind of read about it. And also, on a very layman level, at the end of the day, everyone just wants to sell more newspapers so that they can earn enough money to have a filled stomach, if we have to dilute it to such a level. And in today's day and age, now sales have been converted into digital metrics. So it's clicks and views and impressions and reach and engagement, all of these fancy words that a lot of marketers and anyone I honestly with an online presence knows about. So it's kind of concerning, and it's a little sad also that in the pursuit of getting these numbers up, people are resorting to these kind of cheap tricks and blurring the lines between truth and fiction to an extent that they don't care.
very
And
true.
yeah, and obviously the essence of the news that needs to be covered, or even relevant news that is not getting any kind of spotlight, gets missed out.
Very
So,
true. Very
yeah.
true. I mean, they have made this into a, I mean, once you attach your fortunes to clicks, right?
Hmm.
Then, I mean, that has to keep coming, right? There's no two way about it. And
Yeah.
at some point, when it becomes necessity slash greed slash whatever your story might be,
Hmm.
maybe people won't actually pay that much attention. They might be knowing that they're doing this for the wrong reasons, but they will go ahead and do it. And then there is also another thing that why not? I mean,
Yeah.
why not? Because it also then becomes the rat race that if you're not doing it, the other guy is doing it, and your business suffers, the other guy's
Hmm.
business does not. All of it then boils down to what is the downside? Why should you not do it? Right? So there is one
Yeah.
moral or ethical this thing that, okay, I mean, we are not into such things. But moral and ethical questions also remain till there is somebody to judge you ethically and morally, right? So
Yeah.
a reputed name company might not go ahead and uh, put up their story or put up their news story,
Hmm.
which is not verifiable. Yeah.
True.
But the same does not apply to every some single person with access to internet, right? They do not depend on other people's judgment. Other people's judgment does not, like you said, right? An anonymous person
Hmm.
writing something, uh, he's not getting any blowback from that action, right?
True.
If you notice, when initially, but Ashwarya, any problem, I
Yeah.
mean, what I firmly believe is no, that we are not living unique lives or new things or new problems. I mean, every problem has a parallel in history. It
Hmm.
might be a little demented, you might have to stretch it a little bit to find the solution, but most of our problems have solutions in history. If you look at when printing press came, I mean, and
Hmm.
it was such a revolutionary technology of its day. Earlier, Spanish priests, there were like legion, there were like thousands and thousands of people whose job was just to copy books from one to another by hand. All books were handwritten. There was no other
Yeah.
way before
And it was
print,
a very cumbersome process.
right? It was a job, proper job, right? And then printing press came, and all of a sudden, those people are definitely out of job. But now, even one guy with a printing press can reach thousands and thousands of people. And what did it do? It brought massive upheavals, right? It
Hmm.
brought in it completely. I mean, the religious landscape in Europe changed. A new sect came up. Before it was just Catholics. Now there are Protestants also saying, "Hey, we have read the Bible, and we don't trust what you're saying." Because
Correct.
have seen the printed word. Correct. So
Yeah.
print, when it came, it had massive impact, and then the governments, they staggered for a little bit, but then they found a way to
Hmm.
handle that anybody cannot just go ahead and print and get away with it. Even today, if you see, and that extends to this day, if you go out, you'll see all these pamphlets and posters and everything stuck on walls, right?
Yeah.
If you go out, any legitimate printer who has been licensed to
Hmm.
print pamphlets has
Hmm.
to print the code under the pamphlet, so that if the police wants, they can actually see that who has printed and stuck this, and they can trace it back.
Okay, that's something I didn't know about.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
it's not just, you will find very tiny phone number, something sub identifier will be. We think it's for advertisement. It's not for advertisement.
Okay, so it's for
Okay.
verification process.
So these have been set up. You can't just go ahead and print anything, right?
Hmm.
You can't just go ahead and print a note because you have a printer. You have a printer, because
Hmm.
there are laws against that, and laws have been built to deal with this, right? You cannot, terms like libel, right? They were,
Yeah.
they were coined, and laws were written specifically to handle cases where somebody is writing or publishing something that is blatantly false
Hmm.
or accusatory without any firm belief in it, right?
Correct.
Defamation, these things, they exist in legal, uh, our laws, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And this shows you that how the society was managed, the laws were created to keep bad actors out, or at least bad actors at bay, or if somebody acted in a bad way, they could be put to justice,
Hmm.
which meant that, I don't know if you know this, but all the digital printers that are sold, all the digital printers that are sold, when they
Hmm.
print out, when they print out, uh,
Yeah.
each color printout
Hmm.
has a hidden code in it.
Okay,
To,
so even the
to
colors
trace,
are coded.
yeah. So to trace, so that if tomorrow if you think that you can use a digital printer to print fake currency,
Yeah.
it is traceable. It can be traced back to the printer, and
Hmm.
the entire supply chain can be traced, and you can actually find out that which printer has printed this particular, and it is not visible to the human eye. These are safeguards that have been put in place to avoid misuse of technology, avoid misuse of media like print
Hmm.
by the common person, right? And these have been built into the system. For
Okay.
social and for internet, we have just about started thinking on the problem. Some self-governing bodies have been created by some social media giants.
Hmm.
In other places, government is saying that we will regulate, we will have the truth finding mission, and we will decide what is true and what is not true. Because that also is a
Yeah.
question. What is true and what is not true, Aishwarya? Who decides that?
True. I mean, honestly, that is a very deep question. And not to sound cheesy, but I think the answer to that would be, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. Your perceptions and your biases obviously play a huge part in deciding what you consider as a truth or not. Because
Correct.
I feel like, even this whole trend of sensationalization and the clicks and all you said, and the measures that on a legal and a government's level, or even social media, right, they have guidelines now. Each platform has certain guidelines to, again, as you said, keep these bad actors at bay. But at the same time, I feel that the onus of spreading this wildfire partially lies on the consumers too. Because if people are more receptive to fake news or news which is intentionally misleading, and fans the flame of misinformation and spreading propaganda in a negative way, even publications and editors and writers, or like news harbingers, will just see that as an excuse to continue this practice. They're like कि हम लोग को यही मिल रहा है, like people are responding more to this as opposed to an op-ed or a proper complete piece which is well thought, well written out, and
So
actually presents
why
facts
do
the
you
way
think
it
people
is,
respond more to this?
because they feel like they're getting something out of it.
What are they
I
getting out of it? Why are they doing? Why are people doing what they're
hmm.
doing? Why are they clicking on such stuff? Why are they sharing such stuff? Why?
They're getting out of it in the sense that a part of it resonates with something that they are probably going through, or they know someone else is going through, or it feeds their imagination in a way that it tickles their brain, and they are more likely to read that news, share that news, talk about it more.
It's all to do with curiosity.
Yeah.
We have grown technologically. We have really grown fast in the last 200 years, and since, I mean, we lived in villages around campfires. Okay,
Hmm.
Aishwarya, tell me,
Yeah.
both of your grandparents, or your friends,
Hmm.
what is common between all of the people who are your best friends or your best this thing or your best grandfather or grandmother, or I mean, what would be the common theme between them, you know?
Best friends, I think, not entirely, but upbringing in a certain way, because
Okay.
we have all been brought up in a similar fashion with similar interests. And childhood is such an impressionable age where a lot of interests that you harbor at that time stick with you even when you grow older. So when you find a group of people who share those same interests, you are more drawn to, becoming friends with them and maintaining those friendships. And obviously, value matching also has a large part to play in it. Um, Not necessarily, like beliefs, because beliefs can differ. And I have a lot of friends who, it's a spectrum, honestly. Like, I may not always agree to certain beliefs, but at the same time, I know that it's not worth severing a friendship entirely, because at the end of the day, there are certain core values that, we both may end up agreeing on or believing in on practicing on a regular basis.
See, I mean, when I kind of did this exercise, I found that
Yeah.
most of my friends who were near and dear,
Hmm.
there are only two kinds actually. Either they're very patient listeners or they are very good storytellers. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
I
you can't
found.
be both.
And I realized because and your dearest and nearest friends, when you hold a party, you always have this one person who's a great storyteller, and you look forward to meeting them, because that storytelling piece, it's ingrained within us, and it's ingrained within us from
Mm.
ancient times, because before even the written word was there, I mean, Mahabharata and all of these, they were not written down, they were oratory compositions. Entire Vedas were oratory compositions, and they were shruti, things that you hear,
Yeah,
and it passes, right? And
correct.
they were written down much much later. I mean, so at least in Indian context, storytelling has a very very strong background, right? And that has been the
Mm.
primary way in which we learnt about good, bad, evil, the world, what exists outside of whatever our influence and whatever our reach was, right?
Mm.
The be it a bad rakshas or be it a good king, and all the stories were mediums to actually pass on social ethos and social commentaries, and distinguish. And
Correct.
this is true of every single civilization out there. Storytelling is very common, and story sharing, storytelling, it is so basic to us that we don't even think of it as a separate part of us, or a different activity. And the
Mm.
storytelling actually, and believing in stories, listening to stories, passing on stories, this is fed by a common human thing, which is curiosity. As humans, we are curious. That's why we came out of the jungles, we went into the grasslands, and we have been curious ever since, because and that is why we
Mm.
have grown as well, right? And that
Yeah,
curiosity
agreed.
is something that feeds, and that is the primal thing. When you share, and when the last time when you shared an article or when you shared a story with your friend, the
Yeah.
story satisfied your curiosity, and you shared it for two or three reasons, because you thought it satisfied your curiosity in a very nice way, and you want your friend also to feel that, right? That either
Mm.
it was a piece of information, so it satisfied your curiosity, it was a piece of humor that made you laugh, right? And all of it, the consumption of media, all of it has
Yeah.
an emotional undertone to it. All media that we consume has emotion attached with it. When you consume
Yeah.
media, you get an emotion out of it. Either it is joy,
Yeah.
either it is surprise, or either it is anger, hate, fear, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
But any media consumption, because media, as I said earlier, right, medium is the message. Medium in itself is nothing. I mean, whether it
Mm.
is a blog post, it is an Insta story, it is a mail, it is a video, it does not matter. What it is carrying is a part of somebody's thought.
Yeah.
It is communication, and when you communicate with somebody else, there will always be emotions involved,
Mm.
right?
True.
That's
Emotions,
why we
as you
share.
said,
That's why we share.
yeah,
We
even on
share,
a day-to-day
we share to
conversation
let other
basis.
people feel the same thing that we felt,
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
And
Emotions are something that bring us closer. And even on a digital media level, emotions are what sell. I mean, that's a very marketing answer, but it is what it is. That's why people, as you said, tend to share things or, engage with a certain content piece or news item which evokes certain emotions within them.
all the recent all the recent studies on social media behaviors, whatever, since last 5 years, they have been coming up and finding up again and again and again. It is a given fact.
Mm.
Hate travels faster. If yeah,
Yes.
if there is a news item which is hateful, which carries hate, which is divisive, which divides people, it carries faster because hate generates either hatred or fear. And negative emotions, they get around faster than positive. It's the same thing, like
Mm.
by the time the truth has taken the first step, the lie has gone like 3 times around the world, right? So
Mm.
what is said about
Yeah.
truth and lies, the same thing is about emotions as well. Happy emotions travel slower than negative emotions because negative emotions are mostly emotions that are attached with survival
Instinct.
and
Yeah.
instinct. They are primal to us. Happiness comes afterwards. A monkey might
Yeah.
not actually know how to smile. I don't know if they smile or they make a face, but fear is something that they definitely understand, right? It is that primal. Happiness is an evolved emotion, right?
Mm.
And that is where, so I'm telling you that a lot of internet, and why am I talking of all of these things is a lot of internet,
Yeah.
a lot of digital technologies, social platforms, they are built at that level. And they are
Mm.
built at that level so that you do not have a defense against that.
Yeah.
There
Yeah,
is a
it
problem.
feeds that,
They are built
the
at
whole
that level.
cancel culture, rage bait. I mean, even the words signify these negative emotions that are attached to it. It is literally feeding into negative emotions and it is encouraging you to act upon those negative emotions. And then that gets converted into a negative engagement of sorts, whether
True.
it's trolling or hate sharing and, making deep fakes, especially nowadays, since deep fakes are also on the rise, where again, people are misusing AI to, what do you say, push their own belief, whether it's right or wrong. So,
You
yeah.
know, there are very few people who make statements like the way you made, that people are misusing AI, and which is the accurate statement. Most people very quickly jump and blame the technology. And part of the reason why am I doing this with you and why am I discussing
Mm,
this also, that at the end of
yeah.
the day, technology, no technology is ever to blame because technology only does what humans have encoded in it or have asked it to do. It's an extension of a man,
Yes.
like
Correct.
what I said earlier. It's an extension
Like
of
a
man.
machine.
It is
Yeah.
right. It is not man itself, right? Even
Yeah.
generative AI, the content that is being generated, that is also being generated from a base, from the learnings that
Mm,
are output of man, right? So
yeah.
so therefore, very few people make this distinction that actually technology is not at fault. The way we are using technology, that is at fault. And
Yeah.
the way we are, I mean, that's the same actually. I've used the same rhetoric that actually exists for gun control and again for and against uh,
Mm-hmm.
guns in America. That are guns
Yeah.
to blame. It's not the gun that killed the person. It's actually the person who pulled the trigger. But in technology, it is actually very close to the truth. That is how it works. And and that's thanks for bringing up that point. I mean, I'm sure our listeners should make that distinction when they speak about technology and what's happening to us. It's
Yeah.
people who are making technology do those things, and it's people who are the bad actors and people who are doing this thing to other people. It's not the technology, right? So yeah.
True. So, how do we, I mean, obviously, there are bad actors everywhere. As I said, there is onus even on the consumers, and there's onus, obviously, even on the publishers or, the content creators, if you can call it. So, how do we bring about any kind of positive change and flip this whole negative narrative and, steer ourselves back towards the truth? Like, what are some baby steps probably we can start doing?
See, as I said earlier, right? Like as individuals, definitely we can do some things. Correct. For instance, most of the algorithms, most of the social media, they will ask you, like YouTube. YouTube asks you to dislike stuff. It's
Yeah.
one of the few channels that actually asks for a negative view. Correct.
Mm,
And you should do that.
correct.
When you dislike something, you should dislike it. You should press that dislike button. When you don't like something in Netflix, you should dislike that particular this thing so that you're teaching the algorithm what is it that you like and what is it that you don't like.
Yeah.
Again, caution, because you're also creating your own bubble. When you like, when you dislike, when you interact, you do
Mm.
anything with that social media or with that media, you are creating a bubble. And you have
Mm.
to be aware that you are creating that bubble. So you can make a very positive, feel good bubble, where all the negative stories are being filtered out.
Mm.
But the fake news is not just, or sensationalism is not just in negative news, it's also in
Okay.
positive news, right? I mean,
Mm.
2006, Prince fell into a borewell. It was everywhere in that internet. And today,
Mm.
when Uttarakhand tunnel collapses and workers are being rescued, they are also very, very positive piece of good news. Malaysian tunnel rescue, positive piece of
Yeah.
good news, right? Everybody shared it. It was a joy, right? But underlying, riding that positive news was also how the government worked in to rescue those workers from the borewell. There were
Mm.
profile photos of politicians hugging the borewell workers. Then there were following pieces on how they were rewarded by respective state governments. With the Malaysian tunnel rescue, how Elon Musk kind of stepped in as the provider of a giant tunneling system, which the Malaysian government refused, and so on and so forth. So it's not that only bad news has agenda. Good news also carries an agenda, right? And
Yeah.
it's just that being aware is all sometimes that it takes. Just being aware that, okay, there is this person being praised. The moment we let our filters down, of course. And but again, Ashwarya, I don't see that goal is achievable because it is relentless.
Mm.
It's hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands, and at some point your filter has to give up, right? I mean, so I will say
Yeah.
that spending moderate amount is one of the best places to start with. When we had books, nobody went crazy reading. They were not reading books for 6 hours in a day or 7 hours in a day and 10 hours in a day. But open
Mm.
up your mobile and it will tell you that you were on it for 6 hours a day on an average for the last 1 week, right?
Yeah.
We are abusing it. We
True.
are consuming information more than what our minds are kind of built for, is what I feel. So it can't just be that you moderate the type of consumption and the channels you
Mm.
consume the information from, and you don't do anything about the amount of consumption that is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially what you asked is, Aishwarya, that okay, I
Yeah.
understand a lot of food out there is bad. How can I ensure that I only eat good calorie foods? And yes, that is a way to protect yourself, but it's also about the amount of food that we eat, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So the same thing
Everything in
happens.
moderation.
Right. And the same thing is happening in media also. It's not just about that
Yeah.
good content or truthful content or that we consume, but how much we consume also is very important. And if you start reducing the amount you consume, soon you will find yourself having more time to actually
Mm.
think and chew and digest on what you've consumed, which is something that very few people are doing nowadays. We just consume and consume and consume, right? But we never digest,
Yeah.
we never put it in our long-term memory. Nahi to, can you imagine? I mean, WhatsApp University, I mean, what it would have done, I mean, if people were actually ingesting and kind of making that content a part of their being. We don't do that.
Mm.
It bounces off till the next one comes along.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting and very relatable analogy, using media consumption and likening it to food consumption. As you said, if we just keep consuming, we are virtually left with no space or, time to, sit and mull over it and form an informed opinion. And that also, I believe clouds judgment and common sense, which is again, getting extinct by the day, because simple concepts or things which should be understood in a jiffy, people are nitpicking it, and this hate culture is also kind of attacking it for no reason, when a bit of common sense could have saved you that trouble. So yeah, like doom scrolling is definitely, I
So,
mean,
sir,
it's
if I tell you
impacting all of
one of the
us.
behaviors
Yeah.
that I have stopped using a normal browser altogether.
Okay.
I only use Firefox Focus because it does
Mm-hmm.
not keep any cookies. It leaves no digital footprint. There are other browsers like this. So every
Mm-hmm.
time you close the browser, everything gets erased. And I do
Okay.
this so that whatever I am reading, whatever I am consuming, it does
Hmm.
not shape me, or it does not shape the content that is coming my way.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
because there's no data to feed off of to send curated stuff your
correct.
way.
If you actually want to know how to consume less of your phone, first of all, switch off all
Yeah.
notifications. Step one, all notifications, irrespective.
Yeah, I mean, brutal, but that is a necessary step to be done. I have
I'm
muted
telling you, switch
notifications
off
on a
all
couple of apps.
notifications.
Yeah.
Soon, in 1 or 2 or 3 days, you will realize which applications are the ones where you actually needed notifications, and then switch them on. And that also
Mhm.
switch them on in the least intrusive way if you need it. But I will suggest keep the notifications switched off, because when you really have time, you know,
Mhm.
then you will go to the phone, then you will go and check your WhatsApp, then you will go and check the mails. You will be in a frame of mind because you are at that stage,
Mhm.
rather than me and you talking and a notification coming up on my WhatsApp, and
Yeah.
from the corner of the eye noticing that there's a WhatsApp notification that I have to get to, while
Hmm.
distracting from a deeper conversation that I'm having with you. That is what a normal person's life nowadays is: distracted, right? And the only
Yeah.
thing is
Correct.
first kill all notifications, and then from there you see how it happens. I mean, it will change your life, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it sounds very brutal and it sounds extreme, but if one really wants to, kind of take a detox from this kind of time and space and culture, extreme measures are what you need. And doing something as simple as turning off your notifications help. And I mean, even like in my experience for the last 3 months, I've been pretty inactive on my social media platforms, and that came from a conscious decision of maybe detoxing. I was just overwhelmed with too much information, or reading things that I particularly was not interested in or I didn't want to. And I decided that, if I just take a small break from social media, or I become more of a lurker than a consumer, I can, accordingly divide my time into projects and, hobbies or anything else that really deserve my attention
Very true.
and my energy. And yeah, it has been helping. Like, I don't seem to miss Instagram, especially. I mean, my feed is, very positively curated, if you may put it that way. And I have created
You
my
see,
own
you're talking about
positivity.
Instagram as if it was a person.
Uh, yeah, that's what. I
And
mean, blame
that's what digital
blame my
media does,
generation.
right?
We have been brought up that way.
Yeah. And second,
Yeah.
keep the phone in your pocket. If you don't have a pocket, keep it in your handbag. If you don't have a handbag, leave it at home.
Hmm.
That's the second step. The
Oh, leaving
detox.
it at home is definitely not happening anytime
Oh, so
soon.
that's what. So it's not happening. Like I'm saying that if it is that, so don't keep
Yeah,
your phone
if
in
you
front of
can,
you.
you can go that
Yeah.
extreme and just cut
You,
ties.
you, Aishwarya, trust me.
Hmm.
Look at any billionaires, any video, anything, anywhere. You'll not find
Hmm.
a billionaire holding any phone in any interview, in public, out of public, in candid videos. Nowhere will you find them. These are not tools of, these are tools made to consume. These are not tools
Okay.
made to benefit. It's like orange juice, you know,
Hmm.
which has vitamin C, yes, but there's a lot of sugar and you're mainly drinking it for the sugar and that flavor and that taste.
Yeah, but it's also tempting. So,
Correct.
quitting turkey might not be an option, but gradual reduction can be done over time.
Nobody ever. See, now we are talking in addiction languages, right? See, Ashwarya, that's
Because
what I mean.
everyone is addicted.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, we subconsciously we know all of these things. The language that we use to describe the words that we pick up. All of these have meanings, and we subtly and we subconsciously we know what these things are and what they are doing to us and how to
Yeah.
sense ourselves. But it's just that once we go and find meaning into what we are thinking, then we'll be able to do this. Yeah,
Yeah. Anything with a purpose,
that's it.
that drive is more meaningful, and it's more satisfactory also, instead of just doing things on face value. When you know that there is an end goal to meet and you're driven by that, you're more likely to do that.
Correct. So I mean,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we completely I think, went somewhere else from our this thing, from our topic.
Initial conversation.
Yeah, our initial conversation. But I think it has been kind of we have gone deep rather than wide, which is also fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, we could have easily, maybe quoted brands or spoken about case studies, or taken the wider route, as you said. But I think it's better to, sometimes go into the psyche of things and kind of deconstruct it to such a level where you know, I feel like at least some of our listeners should maybe after the talk get into that self reflection mode and kind of evaluate their practices and then maybe take certain healthy positive steps towards avoiding this kind of consumption and focus more on digesting news
And
and not
if
just
listeners had, joined in on specifically on media, right? So,
yeah.
Marshall McLuhan, I already said 1964, uh, The Extensions of Man, the media something, The Extensions of Man, that's the name of the book.
Hmm.
Then I think somewhere in 1988 or something, Noam Chomsky wrote the book, which is what I'll recommend to your users, definitely, which is
Okay.
Chomsky's. What has happened to my memory? I am distracted, I think.
That's okay. I mean, Noam Chomsky is a very big
Manifesto, manufacturing consent.
manufacturing
Manufacturing
consent.
consent. So
Hmm.
that is the second book, which is a must read. Third is called Unspeak by Stephen Poole. So this one
And
was
speak. Okay.
Unspeak. It is in 2006 when this entire Bush administration and the weapons of mass destruction and that entire thing was coming in, and he has
Hmm.
written an awesome book on how media and how sensationalism gets built, how word choices influence our decisions. He goes
Yeah.
back to George Orwell. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but George Orwell was actually one of the people who understood words and their meanings in a very good way. And a lot of things
Hmm.
that he has written in 1984, and he has created what
Yes.
Speak and Big Brother, and you know
Newspeak. That is a language he created for 1984.
correct. And a lot of such terminologies. So he goes back from George Orwell to, I mean, Bush, and how, I mean, he'll give such awesome examples that, in 70s when this entire abortion and this rage started, uh,
Hmm.
so there was pro-life and the abortionists were anti-abortion, and there were anti-abortionists on the other side. So this pro-life
Yeah.
kind of looked so lucrative. So anti-abortionists realized what mistake they were making and they became pro-choice. So all of a sudden it became pro-life or
Hmm.
pro-choice. Both of them are positives. Which one do you want to pick? And so on and so forth. I mean, so this book is Unspeak that I think, I mean, everyone should read. It's an awesome book. So these three books, I think, and then if beyond that, if you want to understand today's politics
Yeah.
and how words are being used here and how media and concept and all of this,
Hmm.
I will say pick up anything from Francis Fukuyama. Uh,
Okay.
he has written awesomely well on identity politics, which is
Hmm.
identity is his one of the kind of recent books written in the last 5 7 years, and End of History is another one. So and he will, I mean, these are the guys who see things for as they are and they will lay it out to you, and they will create parallels,
Yeah.
and they will create parallels that, I mean, you will not be able to ignore. And it's
Hmm.
how there's an initiation ceremony, and once you read one of these books, any of these books, after that
Yeah.
you go back and when you read the same news stories, you will completely, we would have kind of woken up that okay, this is the twist, this is the spin, this guy is getting benefited, this word is exaggeration, it's not actually needed, and you will start looking at news in that particular way.
Oh,
So
nice. You develop your own microscope
yeah,
to separate fluff from
correct.
things that matter. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it helps. I think we're almost on time.
Yeah, yeah, we're almost done. Our 1 hour's up. Thank you so much, Satyarth. It was an amazing session, and obviously, your knowledge continues to be very awe-inspiring. And I will definitely snag that entire books that you have recommended. I'm going to add it to my reading list so that I also become a better informed consumer of news and other content pieces that I
Remember,
see
Aishwarya,
in online.
not just chew, digest.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it.
Digest, definitely.
Even one book digested properly, it's phenomenal. Yeah, that's the
Yes,
story of content.
definitely.
Okay then. Thank you so much, Aishwarya.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.